81. Joey, Jake, and Reiji were pacing the room we'd been moved into. As one crossed across in front of me, the next would do the same. Back and forth, crisscrossing, stressing. Something was going on. We'd been moved from the boathouse into a large whitewashed house, then down into the basement. There was an interesting smell in the room. Beer and blood. And there was a large square in the middle of the room, as if some kind of large makeshift tent had once been there. I turned my attention back to Yuka. Some color had returned to his face, and his breathing had stabilized. The tube which had connected us for a little, while I gave him some of my blood, lay on the floor, discarded. It'd done its job, allowed me to keep Yuka Takada alive. I was starting to feel woozy, though. It'd been hours since I'd eaten. I'd only had a small amount of water, instead giving most of the bottle to Yuka, and I had given him a little over a unit of my blood. My blood sugar would be low, and if I didn't eat or get to a hospital for a transfusion myself, I knew I would probably pass out in the next 2 hours. Then we would be fucked. "Come on, Alex," I muttered, checking Yuka's heart rate. "Oh, don't worry, Jolene. I can tell you with certainty your lover is on his way." My gaze lifted to Jake, who had stopped pacing and was peering at me. "I've been told he's not too far away. It's almost over." I frowned. "What's over mean for you, Jake? Is it when Alex is dead, or when you are?" Jake tilted his head to the side. "You've gotten quite morbid since you've started fucking my brother." I rolled my eyes. "I'm not fucking your brother. Alex and I are in love, and we're happy, and love?" Jake threw back his head and laughed. "Alex doesn't love anyone or anything. He's a cold-hearted bastard, always has been." I watched as Jake laughed, and a chill went through me. My once best friend was insane. Something had happened to him, and he'd hidden it from everyone so well. "Do you know how many men Alex has dispatched in his time with the Takada clan? Do you know why they call him the ghost of the Takada clan?" My stomach roiled with sickness as Jake came closer to me and crouched down in front of me. "He's adept at getting into places he shouldn't be. He's hurt many people and killed many more." I shook my head. "No." Jake tilted his head to the side again. "What? Don't want to think he's touched you with hands that have taken a life? That's what a Yakuza soldier does, Joey. They take lives to better the clan, to protect the clan." My bottom lip trembled, and I stared at Jake. "Have you?" Jake sucked his tongue over his teeth, and my stomach threatened to exit my mouth. "Where's Phoebe?" The thought he'd killed his wife sat like a lead weight in my stomach. I might not have liked her, but she didn't deserve to die. "She's gone back to where she belongs," Jake said, climbing to his feet. "She didn't see the clan's bigger picture and decided to flake out of her deal. She went back to her master." I blinked, my mind trying to comprehend what he just said. "What?" Jake chuckled. "You actually think I found someone like Phoebe attractive? Please, she was a means to the plan. A distraction. She's always been a clan whore, since she was about 17, always hanging out with the wrong crowds, until someone offered her something she couldn't refuse. Money and a smidge of power." Jake started to pace again, crossing paths with Reiji, who was now staring intently at his phone. "Phobe is owned by Honda Eguchi, borrowed back to Yamoda, so that this whole little schnozzle could be played out." "What? I still don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about." And honestly, I didn't. One minute, Jake was carrying on about Alex and how much he hated him. Then he'd switch to Yamoda, then Eguchi, and then back. Then he'd rant about Yuka, and then be back at Alex again, throwing me in for good measure. Jake stopped pacing and turned to me, crossing his arms over his chest. "Oh, come on, Joey. Use that big brain in your head. All I needed was to pretend to marry Phoebe, to draw Alex out of New York. I've known he's Yakuza for years. How else would he be able to send Ma and Pa so much money, but not be able to tell them where he worked? Kazumi Enterprises? Really? You know what you get when you search that up? I had never thought to do that. A website that tells you it's down for maintenance." Jake chuckled. "And then I got mixed up with some shitty business deals and ended up in Yamoda's sights, and the moment he knew what my name was, I was quickly in his pocket." He started pacing again, talking, and I knew as long as he was talking, he wasn't trying to hurt either Yuka or me. It bought us a little time, although I was starting to feel very, very tired. "Yamoda told me he wanted Yuka's territory in New York, because it was some of the richest in the area, He wanted what Yuka had, but he couldn't do it with Alex in the picture, so my job was to get Alex out of New York. The wedding. Jake grinned. Yep, I thought it was too quick, that Phoebe was fake as fuck, that the chemistry they had was practically non-existent. But why did you break my heart? I worshipped you, Jake. I wanted to be with you. I wanted to be your wife. The grin fell from Jake's face as I confessed to him. I wanted to have children with you. I had been in love with you since I was 12. Jake came over, crouching in front of me again, this time grabbing my hands. We can still have that, Joey. We can be together. We can put this ugly situation in the past. We can have babies and be happy. I snatched my hands from him and glared at him. No, fuck you. You had your chance, and you ruined it. For what? Revenge? Your hatred for your brother has eaten away your soul. I moved away, putting myself between the pair in the room with me and Yuka. I would protect Yuka with my life, if it came down to it. You're right, Jake. You do have unfinished business with your big brother. And this time, I hope he doesn't break your nose. I hope he breaks your fucking neck. 82, Alex. This was too fucking easy, and it was making me sick with worry. There were no guards. The doors were unlocked. It was as if someone was waiting for us. I stepped into the house behind Soda, because the big stupid fucker wouldn't let me go first. Aoto was at my back. The other soldiers I'd bought with me were surrounding the house, in case someone tried to make a run for it. Having fun yet, Alex? I froze at the sound of my brother's voice. My gaze lifted to the corners of the entrance, seeing the blinking red light. Sota, cameras. Sota lifted his hand, flipping off the camera. Oh, wow. I thought Takata clan had more class than that, came Jake's reply. And I thought I taught you not to back down from your problems. I said, knowing the little shit would be able to hear me. He'd been a whiz with computers growing up, and I doubted it had changed. We moved through the house, clearing the lower level, and we stopped at the stairs which led both up to the next floor and the door which led down to the basement. Oh, I didn't back down, and that's what led me into Yamota's pocket. I rolled my eyes, knowing I was probably provoking him into doing something stupid. But if he didn't, then I wouldn't have the upper hand. Because right now, he controlled the whole situation. Oh, boo fucking who? There was silence from the speakers dotted around the house, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. Always the most precious of us. Spoiled little. Alex? The sound of Joey's voice had me stopping in my tracks. Joey? Alex, Yuka is hurt. He's not going to make it. My stomach plummeted to my feet, and I looked at Soda, whispering, Which way, big guy? Down, Soda replied, and I nodded, turning to Aoto. Down. Aoto nodded and tried the handle on the basement door. It was a little stiff, but in the end it popped open. We all stepped to the side, and perhaps just in case someone was at the bottom, waiting with a gun. But after a few minutes, Jake's voice floated up the stairs. Come on, big brother. Let us play like old times. Leave your goons and your gun up there. No fucking way, Soda growled. You are not going down there by yourself. I turned to the guy who had saved my life, and I trusted with everything. If I don't come back up in 10 minutes, come down with the whole clan. Alex, Soda, please. Just listen to me. It took him a moment, but in the end, Soda nodded and stepped back. I inhaled deeply, handing my gun to Aoto, who put it in the back of his pants. Be careful, boss. I'll try. Taking another deep breath, I stepped forward and started down the steps. It was dark, but it always had been. The lighting was shitty, to cover the backhand deals which had been made when this house held its underground boxing. As my foot stepped down onto the dirty concrete, there was a single round of applause, which rang around the room. There he is, the golden child. If I hadn't known who I was expecting, I wouldn't have been able to tell this guy was my brother. His hair had been shaved close to his head, he looked sick, and he had lost weight. There was also a Yamota tattoo poking out of the collar of his tank top, and my stomach fell. I had hoped that he hadn't been marked. He might have been able to have been reformed, been let off. But now I knew whatever punishment he was to receive, it would be at the full force of Yakuza law if he made it out of this alive. Jake's clapping stopped, and he stepped to the side. Yuka was lying on a dirty mattress on the other side of the room. His color was of ash, and my stomach flipped with the idea he was close to death. My gaze moved from my boss, and I looked around the room, my stomach dropping. Where's Joey? Jake chuckled. Funny thing with that one. You know she's been loyal to a T with you? I offered her what she wanted. Life with me, babies and marriage and all that. You know what she said? I knew exactly what she would have said. Let me guess, she told you to go and get fucked. Jake's laugh faded. You've corrupted her. Like I said, devil dick. She was so perfect before, so malleable. She would do anything I asked her to, and do you know how hard it was to not make her be a freak for me? She was pretty and has a really nice body, and I tipped back my head and started to laugh, which pissed Jake off. What's so funny? You talking like that, thinking you're some big tough guy, talking about Joey like you owned her. You didn't own shit, Jake. You thought you had control over her. Wrong. I leaned against the base of the stairs. I wasn't stupid enough to step too far into the room, and from where I was, Aodo and Soda would be able to see my hands, which were behind my back, signing to them. Still as arrogant as ever. Jake spat. You know I only ever wanted to impress you when I was a kid. You were my big brother. You should have had my back. What, like you had Joey's? Are you fucking kidding me? You know what I got for looking out for you, for trying to help. I got kicked out of home. The day you were born, Dad's mother told me I was not the favorite anymore, that I was the spare. I didn't matter. All I was there for was to make sure I looked after our parents, and I have been doing that for the last 10 years. Jake was starting to tense up, and I could tell he was about to launch into his own monologue. Mom never stopped comparing me to you. Why can't you be more like your brother? Why are you so rude? Alex would never be so rude. Stop that. Alex would never do that. Alex makes more money than you ever could. You need to work harder. Wow. I had never thought about the pressure my mother might have put on Jake after I left, but that didn't excuse him from what he had done. Yeah, okay, our mother was a shitty one, but it doesn't excuse you for what you've done. Why go to Yamoda? I stepped forward. Jake, we may not have seen eye to eye, but you could have come to me for help. If you had told me you needed money, I would have given it to you. Jake blinked, then balked at me. And what? Be in your debt for the rest of my life? No fucking way. There was no getting through to him. I didn't want this. I didn't want to have to fight my brother or turn him over to the Yakuza, but we were both bound by the tattoos on our chests. Jake, please, all you have to do to end this is give me Yuka. Tell me where Joey is, and tell us this was all Yamoda's idea. He's a fat bastard who needs to be taught a lesson, and... Jake tilted his head to the side. Yamoda? You think this is all Yamoda's idea? Are you serious? He started to laugh, and I felt a chill of fear drilling into my back, along with the press of a pistol. I'm sorry, Alex. I closed my eyes as I heard that voice. One I had trusted for close to 10 years, one I had trusted with my girlfriend's life. Turning my head, I looked back to Aodo. Dude, Joey is going to be heartbroken. I know, but it's just business. With those words, Aodo's gun came up and he brought the butt down onto the back of my neck and I fell, blacking out. 83. Joey. I'd been moved, taken away from Yuka and bundled into a boat of all things. We'd set off from the house and I would have screamed if the gun Reiji had been holding was pointing anywhere else but my head. I had argued with Jake about leaving Yuka, but he had pushed me out the door and had stayed back with him, and I knew he would be the one to confront Alex when he came looking for me. You think he'll come looking for you? I looked at Reiji in the subtle light. Who? Alexander. He'll have the chance to take Yuka safely away or come after you. Which one do you think he will choose? I stared at Reiji. I hope he takes Yuka. The man in front of me left, tipping his head back, and I almost leaped up and crashed into him, just to send him over the edge and into the water. I was a good swimmer, was he? Wow, you really have turned clan, more worried about the boss than yourself. I'm worried about Yuka because I'm his doctor. Moron. How did I once think this idiot was one of the good choices to be looking after me? Maybe I should have chosen Naoki. The kid was sweet and was like a puppy around me, always wanting to make me happy. And I swear if he had a tail, he would have wagged it. You should be worried about yourself, Joey. About what happens now. Yeah, I was worried about that too. The further away from the house we got, the more frightened I got. Who would they sell me to? Ikeda, that slimy lawyer from Iguchi? You're pretty, and you are medically trained. Someone would be bound to pick you up for either one or both of those traits. Reiji chuckled, and he turned his head, as someone jabbered at him in Japanese. I swear I heard the words, "It's done." What? What was done? Reiji turned his head back to me, and even in the small amount of light given off by the boat's lights, I could see the sinister grin which started to spread across his face. Well, Jake is on his way. He'll decide what's going to happen to you. Jake was on his way, which meant Alex, and maybe even Yuka, were either gone or dead. Because I knew Alex wouldn't have let Jake walk away on his own without some kind of bargaining chip. Oh my God. Was that the reason I had been taken? To let Jake get away? I was starting to hate my ex-best friend. The longer this night wore on, and if I could have choked the life out of him myself, I would have. Reiji stood up and looked past me, and his face started to become clearer as the night started to give way to early morning. Fuck. Had we been at this shit that long? Get ready. We're moving from the boat to the cars, and then we're heading back toward Henderson, then on to Vegas. I turned my head and looked to the shore, which was looming. There were at least 3 cars that I could see, and as the boat reached the edge of the lake, one of the cars opened and a couple of figures stepped out. The sunrise, while beautiful, also highlighted the horror of who stood next to Jake. Aoto. I stared at the man who I had trusted with my life, who I had stitched up, and who had often been the only thing between me and danger. I'd shared cars and elevators and food with this man. Oh yeah, Reiji chuckled, grabbing the rope around my wrists and dragging me to my feet, as the boat's bow touched the sand, and some Yakuza soldiers started to drag it up the bank. You thought it was just me who was dodgy in the ranks of the Takata clan? Meet our ultimate mole. Reiji shoved my hands forward as Aoto stepped up to me and grabbed the rope. There wasn't an ounce of shame or regret in his features, and I yanked my hands away. Get the fuck away from me, you're a fucking traitor! Aoto rolled his eyes and leaned forward, grabbing the rope and pulling with force. I was yanked off the boat by my wrists and dumped onto the wet sand, where the water of the lake washed against my bare legs, and my hands dug into the sand. Was the reason that Jake got away because of Aoto? What had he done to Yuka? To Alex? Rough hands grabbed me by the arm and lifted me, and I screamed, flinging the fistful of sand out of my hand into Aoto's face, and I turned and took off down the beach, running for my life. Some moron go and get her. I heard Jake call out, and before I could get more than 100 feet away, I was tackled to the ground. Pinned on the sand, with the side of my face pressed into the sand, I felt pressure on my buttocks as someone straddled me and leaned over, hissing in my ear. You should know I like the chase, so do that again, and next time I will make sure you end up as my meal. I bucked under Reiji, and he was gone, and I was yanked to my feet and turned. Aoto gripped my arm roughly, dragging me toward him. Behave yourself, Joey. I spat at him, a huge glob of sand-filled saliva hitting him in the face, and he reached up, wiping it away, before he glared at me. Wrong move. I saw his hand lift, and I knew he was going to strike me, but I still gave him cheek. I hope Alex finds you and skins you alive, traitor. Aoto faltered for a second, and he looked to Reiji, who was kicking the sand like a child. Aoto turned back to me, and the sudden softness I had always seen in him shone through for a second. He leaned in and whispered to me, Alex is coming. This is all part of his plan. Please, trust me. I will never let anyone hurt you, but I'm sorry. I have to slap you to keep up with the trick. I blinked at him, screwing up my nose, and was about to ask him what the fuck he was carrying on about when his hand swung back again. I'm sorry. The crack of his palm against my cheek was the last thing I heard as I blacked out. 84, Alex. We watched as the soldiers from Oguchi carried Yuka out of the basement and off into a waiting car to be taken to the hospital, and I waited until I was sure they were gone, until I started to complain. Fuck, he didn't have to hit me so hard. I winced as I held the ice pack to the back of my neck. I owe him a black eye for that shit. And he'll happily take it. Soda replied. How's your head? Feels like a 260-pound Japanese bodyguard whacked me on the back of the head with a gun. Soda chuckled in my pain. Oh wait, he did. He played his part perfectly. That he did. When we realized it wasn't the Ikeda who was causing the trouble in the Takata territories, Aoto had the bright idea to come up and trick whoever was responsible into showing themselves by carefully voicing his disquiet about Yuka and his leadership. And lo and behold, we had a bite. Reiji. But the sly little bastard was careful about what he said, and never named who was employing him, just that if Auto played his part, there would be a tidy sum in it for him. I never, for a second, doubted the big man's loyalty. He was so protective of not only me, but of Joey as well. And he knew, unless something changed, she would always be in danger. So he had liaised with Reiji and come up with an elaborate plan to get to Yuka, because he was always the main subject. But something changed. When Auto told me there were credible threats of Joey being taken too, I almost called it all off just to make sure she wasn't hurt. Until Auto told me if anything ever happened to her, he would be in the best position to get her out of danger, because they trusted him. I just hoped he was right, and he still held their favor, because if he didn't, then they would be in deep trouble. Has Oliver managed to find the tracking dot? Soda looked down at his phone. He said give him another 5. They're struggling to pinpoint it. There must be some sort of shielding on the vehicles they're in. I didn't doubt there would be. Jake was just as savvy with tech as Oliver. Let me know when he's found something. Soda nodded, and I looked around the room, hoping Jake might have left something behind, which might tell us what his plans were. But it was no use. There was nothing. Sighing, I walked back over to Soda, who looked at me and grinned. We've got them. Oliver managed to ping Jake's phone. No pickup on the tracking dot, though. I frowned, worried something might have happened to Aoto. It's the best we have. Let's go. Running up the steps, I walked out of the house and into the early morning. There was a car waiting for us, and we climbed in. Soda sat in front, while the driver took directions from him. We left Lake Las Vegas and moved back toward Henderson, and something niggled in the back of my mind. Why would Jake risk going back to Henderson? I pulled out my phone and dialed Oliver. Alex? Are you okay? Bump on the back of the head from Auto, but I'm okay. I told him not to hit you too hard. Yeah, well, he knocked me out. But that's not why I am calling. Can you do me a favor? We haven't got the tracking dot, but are following Jake's phone, but something seems wrong. Pull up Reiji's. I could hear tapping on the other end of the line. Are you thinking they split up? That, or they've sent Jake's phone with someone else. He always was a deceitful little shit. Okay, give me a minute. It was a very fucking long minute, and as I opened my mouth to say something, Oliver came back to me. Well, looks like your hunch is right. They've split up. Reiji is headed toward Vegas. I leaned forward and tapped the driver on the shoulder. Pull over. He did, and as the car came to a stop, I climbed out and walked back to the other vehicles which were following us. The drivers stepped out and gathered around me and Soda, who, like a puppy, followed me. Right, Reiji and Jake have split up. Hirano clan, you continue to follow Jake's phone. Soda stepped forward and gave the tracking information to the driver, who put it into his GPS unit before stepping back behind me. Nomura clan, I want you with us. I have a feeling they might have sent Jake's phone on a trip, and Jake is with Reiji, so we're going to need the backup. The drivers nodded and headed back to the cars, and the Hirano clan drove off. I turned and went back to the car and climbed in, Soda climbing into the back, and we headed off again. The Nomura clan following us. This could be totally wrong. Jake could possibly be heading back to Henderson. But something told me he was thinking of the bigger picture, and how to get the hell out of Nevada, or even just to hide, nowhere really that he could hide in Henderson. Not now that the clans knew who he was, or what he'd done. The phone rang and I answered it, putting it on speakerphone. Ollie, what's up? Yuka is in surgery. He's lost a lot of blood, but the doctors said there was a puncture wound to his arm from a transfusion kit. A what? Blood transfusion kit. Someone gave Yuka blood. The doctor said if he hadn't received it, he wouldn't have made it. My stomach dropped to the floor. Joey, she gave Yuka blood. But from where? Fuck, Joey would have given Yuka her blood, which means she will be weak. Lethargic? Shit, well, I'd hurry up. If she doesn't get help soon, she might not make it. Thanks, man. Keep me up to date with Yuka. Will do. The line clicked and I turned looking at Soda, who frowned. And you thought she wasn't tough enough for this life. I turned back to the front and hung my head, and as we headed toward Vegas, I just hoped I was right, because I knew if I wasn't, Joey was in a ton of shit. 85, Joey. I was squashed between two hard bodies, and every time we turned a corner, I'd fall against one of them. The body on my left was rough, shoving me upright each time, mumbling about how they should have put me in the trunk or dumped me in a lake. The one on my right was softer, gently sitting me up and smoothing my hair from my face, whispering to me every now and then that everything would be fine. He had a plan. You fairly knocked her out, Auto. Float for Ed, a voice from the front of the car. You wanted her compliant, the voice on my right said. I did my job. Yeah, you did. She was fawning all over you, thinking you protected her when you were double-crossing her. It's been hilarious to watch. The voice came from my left, ragey. If I could, I would reach out and smash my elbow into his scrawny face. But I had to try and remain as if I was knocked out. At one point, I had moved when thrown against Auto, and he'd noticed and whispered to me to try and stay still and pretend I was still unconscious. I didn't know whether to trust him or not, after what I had seen him do, after what he'd said and the slap he'd given me. But something told me he was still loyal to Yuka, which meant there was a plan. Are you sure we can't just slit her throat and drop her in the lake? I mean, come on, she's just a white whore and... Ragey, Jake, I was still in his presence. Wonderful. With how far his brain had been fried, I wasn't coming out of this in one piece. He was insane, and I hoped I never knew how much. As much as you have come in handy, you are, like every single one of Yamota's soldiers, expendable. Reiji huffed. Besides, I don't want Alex coming after me because I killed his girl. His girl. So he was finally admitting I was with his brother, and there was nothing to be done about it. That was a first. Jake admitting something was inevitable. We only need her long enough to get Yuka to sign his territories to Yamota, then we'll set her free somewhere. Maybe out in the middle of the desert. By the time anyone finds her, she'll be close to death, if not already a corpse. Great. Back to the killing of Joey. I felt Auto stiffen beside me, and he spoke up. But Alex will still come after you. Jake chuckled. Yamota has guaranteed me a nice cushy job in a place in the Iguchi clan, back in Japan, if I can pull this off. Back in Japan. Yeah, right. Jake didn't know a word of Japanese. It had been something his father had been disappointed with, not taking the time or having the passion to learn his native tongue. I knew more Japanese than Jake did. Nice, Reiji chuckled. I've never been to Japan. It'll be great. There was silence, and I knew cracks were about to start appearing in the relationship between Reiji and Jake. You're probably never going to, unless you get permission. What, you go? I go. No, I go, you stay here. It was only offered to me. Jake said, and I felt Auto shift beside me. He leaned toward the door, letting me fall against him, and while Jake and Reiji argued, he whispered at me. When the car stops, get ready to run. When the car stops, we weren't going to. Stop the fucking car! Reiji barked, and I heard the flick of a safety switch on a pistol. Now! The car slid to a halt, and the moment it did, and Reiji and Jake got out, yelling at each other, Auto opened his door and stepped out. I quickly scrambled, throwing myself out of the car, and climbed to my feet, and he grabbed my hand, and we ran. Pop, pop, pop. The bullets whizzed past our heads, thudding into the trees around us, as we took off into the dense bushes, and I squealed as some bark flicked up and hit me in the side of the face. Keep running, Joey. Auto was pulling me behind him, at a rate of speed, and I was stumbling along. My chunky ass, even with the workouts of Elks and I fucking, wasn't helping my stamina, and I fell a couple of times, only to have Auto yank me to my feet and pull me behind him again. I didn't know what this was going to achieve. Honestly, where were we going to run to? Neither of us knew Vegas or Nevada. Neither of us had a phone or the money to call one. I fell again, and Auto turned, pulling me to my feet. Come on, Joey. Stop, I fought against him. I've lost blood, I'm fatigued, I can't do this. Lost blood? Are you injured? He asked, quickly checking me over. He was worried about me, and I knew I had been wrong for calling him a traitor. You have no wounds. He pulled me to my feet again and started running, but he was increasingly having to drag me. I gave Yuka some of my blood. He needed it. I was starting to regret my decision, but my duty as a doctor had overwritten my self-preservation. Joey. I know. It was silly. I puffed, and my hands slipped from his, both of them going to my knees as I doubled over, trying to catch my breath. Go, Auto. I'm just going to sit here under this bush. Maybe they won't find me. Auto turned back to me, shaking his head. Nope, not an option. I promised Alex I would get you out of Jake's hands and back into his. As I tried to sink to my ass under a bush, Auto grabbed my upper arm, ducked his body, and put his shoulder against my stomach. Hold on. He hoisted me over his shoulder, putting his arm behind my knees, and turned, running the way we were headed. And as my head banged against his burly back, and I started to drift into unconsciousness from my blood donation, I hoped to hell that he was able to keep his promise to Alex. 86, Alex. The phone rang in the car and Soda reached across, pressing the button on the steering wheel. What do you have, Hirano? My stomach leaped into my throat as we waited for the reply. Alexander-san, you were right. We caught up with the car which had Jake's phone. He wasn't in it, and after a couple of punches, the driver admitted Jake and Reiji went the other way with Ioto and a white girl. Good job, I said, and Soda hung up. Soda, get Oliver on the phone. Soda dialed Oliver and the car speaker picked up. Alex? Have you had a ping on the tracking dot yet? As of 5 minutes ago we hadn't, but let me check. There was a bit of a pause. Yes, we have. It's moving pretty damned quickly, too, through dense bushland by the look of it. Where? I asked, sitting forward. I picked up the bulletproof vest from the floor next to my foot and started to strap it up. If I was going to be running through bushland, I wasn't going to go in without protection. Less than a mile from you. We will find them, I replied, checking my gun. Alex, be careful. Reiji's phone is pretty close to them. Not following directly, but it's close. Aoto might have lost them. Fuck, I hoped so. But at the same time, I knew Aoto would not only have injured himself, from the gunshot wound to the shoulder, but he was probably carrying Joey. She had given Yuka blood. She would be fatigued and wouldn't be too coherent. Oliver, call Hirano and get them to send over a car with a universal blood pack. If we don't get blood into Joey, we might lose her. Got it. He hung up, and I sat back as our driver raced us toward the spot where they were. I didn't know the first thing about a blood transfusion, but surely I could read the instructions. I watched through the windscreen as we drove along, trying to find anything that told us where. There! Stop that car! Our driver skidded to a halt, and we stared at the vehicle in front of us, waiting for a few moments to see if anyone would pop up and take potshots at us. The doors of the vehicle were open, and it seemed abandoned. I carefully opened my door at the same time as Soda and stepped out, keeping my body behind the bulletproof window and door. I really didn't want to be shot. I waited for a few moments. Pop. Pop. I turned my head, listening to the gunshots. Sota, he said. Coming around the back of the car to my side, he looked down at me. Are you sure you want to go in there? I rolled my eyes and looked at him. Yeah. Okay. Soda checked his gun and lifted it in a defensive stance. After you, boss. I followed his move, lifting my gun and moved toward the bushes and found an opening. Moving quickly, we both checked every little cove and underbrush we thought would hide someone before we moved forward. The further we went into the dense scrub, the more nervous I became. What would I encounter? Would I be able to handle it if I found Joey hurt or dead? A couple more gunshots, followed by yelling, and both Soda and I slowed our pace. I fucking knew it was too convenient to have you suddenly become disenchanted with the Takada clan. Soda and I ducked down and moved along a set of bushes until a clearing popped up and we saw the scene. Reiji, that little fucker was going to get what was coming to him, and more. But no, Jake said you could be trusted. Fuck that. Aoto was on his knees, grimacing in pain, as his hands sat on the back of his head, and he looked up at Reiji, then spat on his shoes. Reiji looked down, then stepped forward, pistol whipping Aoto across the face, opening up the just-healed slice Joey had stitched up. Aoto's head snapped to the side, but the big man didn't wall. Instead, he turned back to Reiji. You're a pussy. Reiji dropped his head to his chest. See, that's the problem with the Takada clan. A bunch of big heroes thinking they are top shit and that they are tough guys. But you know what? You're not that tough. Reiji moved his arm, thus raising it, and lifted the pistol, aiming it at Aoto. I just have to decide whether to shoot you in the head or the heart. Before I could even blink, Soda launched himself out of the bushes and ran across the clearing, roaring. Reiji turned, shock and fright on his face, and I watched in horror as Reiji's gun turned and aimed at my friend. "Sota!" I screamed, launching from the bushes and ran, trying to get to him, to knock him out of the way, but I couldn't, and the gun went off. "Sota!" Sota stopped in his tracks and looked down at his chest as Auto lifted his own injured body and tackled Reiji to the ground and started to pummel him. "Sota!" I grabbed the big guy's arms just as he started to pitch backward. We fell together, my breaking his fall, and he landed on my chest, winding me. I tried to move to get myself out from under his big frame, while I also listened to him gasping for air. "Sota! Sota! Sota!" I kept repeating. I finally got out from under him and lay him in the dirt as I watched blood blossom across the shit shirt. "You big dumb fuck." Sota was gasping, his hand scrambling to grip my arm as he struggled to breathe. "Get over here," I screamed, trying to get Sota to put down his arm. I needed to be able to figure out where the bullet had gone. I looked back to Auto, who still pummeled Reiji. "Auto!" The big man looked up, rage on his features, punched Reiji once more, sat up, then scrambled to Sota's other side. "Shit, shit, 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 shit." "Just hold down his arms," I said, pulling a flick knife out of my pocket. I sliced open Sota's shirt as Auto held his arms still and opened it. The bullet entry was small but bruised quickly. There wasn't heaps of blood loss, so I knew it hadn't hit an artery. It was higher than the average person's heart, sitting just under his collar, and I worried it had lodged in his breastbone. "Auto, help me roll him a little." We rolled Sota a tiny bit, enough for me to look at his back. "Fuck! It's still in there." We laid Sota back down, and his breathing continued to labor. "Hang in there, Sota." I pulled out my phone, swearing as it fell from my hands, slick with Sota's blood. I finally held it steadily and dialed Oliver. "Alex? Sota's been shot in the chest. The bullet is still in there. What do I do?" "Fuck." Oliver's reply came. "Where?" "Upper left quadrant, about an inch below his collarbone. It doesn't look like it's a big bullet." "Okay, can you just feel the wound, see if it might be lodged in his breastbone?" I put the phone on speaker, then down on the ground. My hand moved to the wound, and I looked at Sota. "Sorry about this, big guy." My finger slipped into the bullet hole, and Sota roared in pain, bucking, before becoming still. I looked at his face, then to Auto. "He's out." "Good," I replied. I dug into the wound and closed my eyes. "I can feel the edge of it, but it's in the bone." "Right, I have another team on the way. The first one with the blood for Joey will take Sota to the hospital. The second team will help you." Oliver sounded just as stressed as we were. "Who shot him?" "Reiji," I said, looking back to the bloody mess that had been Reiji's face. He wasn't breathing, and I knew Auto had killed him. Better him than me. Auto pummeled him to death. He's out of the picture. There was a pause. "And Jake? Joey?" I looked at Aoto, who stood and looked down at me. "Go. I'll take Sota back to the cars." I picked up my phone and turned, as Aoto lifted Sota to him, and I replied to Oliver's question. "I'm about to go and get them." 87. Joey. When Auto had pushed me under the bushes and told me to stay quiet for at least 20 minutes, then find someone to help, I thought that maybe I would have gotten away and made it to safety. But no, as I had crawled my chunky ass out from under the bush, Jake was standing in the clearing waiting for me. I had tried to get away, climbing to my feet and starting to waddle off, but I was at the end of my energy. I'd lost blood. I hadn't eaten for hours. And I was dehydrated, so of course, my legs gave out from under me, and I fell to the ground again. "Tsk," Jake said, stepping closer, and I tried to crawl away. "We could have just forgotten everything and lived happily." "I would have given you everything, Joey. We could have been happy." I crawled across the dirt, not caring if I was getting covered in it, grass, or bugs. I just wanted to be away from Jake. He was not the boy I had loved and grown up with. He'd been replaced by a monster who seemed to only want to destroy me and everything I had, as if I wasn't worthy of being happy. As I slowly crawled, Jake walked behind me, rambling as he did. "Yamoda offered me a place in Japan, my own subdivision of the clan, so that I can build up my name and prestige. I hope that you'd be able to be by my side, give me children." I stopped crawling, my breath coming in labored gasps, and I rolled over and looked up at him. "You're insane. You honestly thought, after what you've done to me, I would want anything to do with you. I would rather die than—" 1 minute, I was talking shit to Jake. The next, he was straddling me, his hands around my throat as he leaned in. You are a fucking bitch. I gave you everything when we were kids, and now you spit it back in my face and run off with my brother. For what? A bit of dick? I slapped Jake's arms and kicked my legs, trying to get him off me, but he was bigger than me, heavier, and at full strength. I couldn't even scream for help. The pressure in my throat was becoming thicker, and I knew it wouldn't take much longer for me to pass out. I just wasn't strong enough. I had given my strength to Yuka when I donated blood to him. I was going to die here, at the hands of my ex-best friend, and I would never see Alex again. That's what I was most terrified of. Never seeing Alex again. Never making him crazy, never having him make love to me, or call me doll again. The edges of my vision were blackening, and my slaps at Jake's arms were becoming weaker, and his grip became tighter, and he leaned in, whispering in my ear, "I am going to leave your corpse here for Alex to find. I told you I'd choke the life out of you, Joey." Stars were starting to dance in front of my eyes. Then they were gone. I coughed as the weight of Jake lifted from me, and I rolled to the side, trying to search out what had happened. Jake was in the dirt, with Alex on top of him. Alex was trying to smack Jake, and Jake did the same back. "Fucking little pussy, I should have broken more than your nose." Jake bucked and threw Alex off, jumping on him, and they wrestled in the dirt, as I lay there, helpless. I didn't have the energy to help Alex, and knew, if I tried, I would get hurt. They continued to wrestle, each of them gaining an advantage over the other for only a few seconds before losing it. But I could see Jake was starting to tire easier than Alex. Jake was wiry and thin, from God knows how long of him being sick or even on drugs. Alex was healthy, eating well, training almost every day. If I could put money on it, I'd say Alex was going to win. Jake knocked Alex onto his back and pounced, but Alex was quicker, and he brought his knees back against his chest and kicked out as Jake jumped down toward him. With the kick to the chest, Jake fell backward, and Alex scrambled to straddle him, and with one blow, knocked him out. He sat there for a few moments, while he made certain Jake was unconscious. Then he turned and looked at me. "Joey?" Alex leaped off his brother and ran over, sliding in the dirt, and dragged me into his lap, holding me. "Oh, Joey, you're alive." He peppered kisses all over my face, then my lips, kissing me as if we'd been apart for years. I clung to him, tears streaming from my eyes as he held me, and he broke the kiss, looking down at me. "A team is on the way with some blood. You shouldn't have done that. You could have died. It was stupid and reckless." I looked up at him. "Is Yuka alive?" Alex nodded. "Yes, he is in surgery." "Then it wasn't stupid." I smiled and Alex rolled his eyes, kissing me again. "Is Aoto okay?" Alex nodded. "But Sota isn't." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Reiji shot him. Aoto is with him on the way to the hospital. The bullet lodged in his breastbone. He was having trouble breathing. Pieces have probably splintered off the back of his breastbone," I said, my own breath coming in short bursts, "and punctured his lung. He'll be okay? If he gets to the hospital on time, he will be." My eyes slid closed as the fatigue really started to kick in. "Joey?" Alex lifted me a little, shaking me. "Joey, open your eyes, doll." I just couldn't. I was so tired and worn out. My blood sugars would have been at rock bottom right now, and my iron levels shot. My body was having trouble recovering from the transfusion. That was why people were told to eat, drink, and rest. After giving blood, and not to do too much to get the heart rate up. You ran the risk of passing out. "Joey, come on, doll." Alex shook me again, and my eyes fluttered open. "That's it. Stay with me, baby." A shadow came into my periphery, and I looked up. "Jake!" Alex shoved me away as Jake leaped on Alex again, this time with a blade in his hand. The little knife arced close to Alex's face, missing his cheek, and Alex threw his arm up, smacking Jake across the side of the head with his forearm. Jake fell to the side, and Alex lifted himself and jumped on top of Jake, just as the knife spun in his hand and pointed up. "Alex!" Alex grabbed Jake's wrist, fighting with his brother over the knife, their bodies getting closer together, until they met. "Oof!" Alex scrambled back, his eyes wide, and my gaze went to Jake. The knife was buried to the hilt in Jake's stomach. "No, no, no, Jake!" Alex scrambled, catching his brother as he pitched backward onto the grass. "No, come on, you fucking idiot! Stay with me!" I stared as Alex cradled Jake's head, smoothing his hand over his forehead, but his brother went limp in his arms, and Alex looked up at me, tears running down his cheeks. "Joey." I blinked. "Joey, call someone." Alex's phone landed in the dirt next to me and I picked it up. Opening it, I dialed the last number that had been called and put it on loudspeaker. Alex? Oliver? We need help. Jake's been stabbed. I don't know where we are. Please. Jolene? Hang on. I'm going to guide someone to you. You're not far from the road. Can you get out to it? It's not more than 20 feet from where you are. I looked at Alex, who had stood and was picking Jake up, carrying him like you would a bride. Careful not to move the knife in his stomach. He looked at me as I got to my feet, trying not to fall again. Which way, Oliver? Joey, who has the phone? I do. Okay, take a few steps in one direction, he said, and I did. Okay, stop. You need to head back the other way. 20 feet, and you're at the road. Auto is on his way. I'll stay on the line until you are with him. Alex started to move, and I went to his side, cradling Jake's head in my hand. He was unconscious, and I was worried he wouldn't make it. We moved as quickly as we could and finally pushed through the last of the bushes and popped out into a clearing near a road as an SUV pulled up and Auto jumped out of the passenger seat. Alex! Joey! Auto, grab Jake. Careful, he'd been stabbed in the stomach. We have to get him to the hospital. Alex moved, and even though Jake had put us through hell, Auto took Jake from him so gently and moved to the back seat of the car. He was helped by another soldier who helped to maneuver Jake in, and he sat down, cradling Jake's head as another car turned up. Auto turned to us. I'll get him to the hospital, promise. Alex nodded as the door closed and the car sped off, and he turned to me, just as my knees went out from under me. Joey? Alex grabbed me, swinging me up into his arms like he had with Jake, and held me to his chest. I have you, doll. I have you. He took us to the other car, sitting us in the back. Follow Auto. Joey needs the hospital, too. The driver sped off, and I lay in Alex's arms as he lay soft kisses across my cheeks and mouth. I love you, Joey. I love you. I smiled as my consciousness started to slip, and I murmured back, I love you too, Alex. 88. Alex. I hadn't moved from Joey's side, other than to check in on Yuka. His surgery had gone well, and he had been as concerned for Joey as everyone else. There was more than enough security in the hotel where Yuka and Joey were now recovering in, and we were hoping to head home in the next few days and start to get back to normal. But there was the little trial which was going to be held against Jake and Yamada to see to first. Hirano wanted to hold it while we were still there, so that we knew firsthand that justice had been served. There was a light knock on the door, and I stood, leaving the bedroom, and went to answer it, knowing it would only be someone who cleared security. Hirano had been pretty adamant that no one would get in unless they were of our clan. Opening it, I stared at the huge lump which stood in the doorway. Ollie. He stepped forward, wrapping his huge arms around my chest, and lifted me in a bear hug. You stupid motherfucker. I laughed as he squeezed me for putting me down. Who's looking after the... Shh, Ollie said, pressing one of his huge fingers against my lips. Less talking, more playing the victim. Nice shiner, by the way. I chuckled as I closed the door. In my scuffle with Jake, I had sustained quite a few blows to my face. Most had started to fade, but the black eye was still there. Joey likes it. Bullshit. Ollie chuckled, putting his backpack to the side. How is she? Still asleep. Joey had lost unconsciousness in my arms on the way back to the hospital. She'd woken for a few moments when we'd got there, and then again after her transfusion. But the doctor who treated her said she'd sustained some internal bruising and her body was very weak. Her sleeping so much was its way of trying to heal. Not with you two noisy buggers around. I turned, looking back to the door of the room. Joey was leaning against the frame, her eyes a little glazed over but awake. I went to her, taking her gently by the arm. I'm sorry, doll. Here, let me get you back to bed. She shook her arm free and walked past me, going to Oliver, who enveloped her in a massive hug. Hey, Ollie. Hey, princess, he said, kissing the top of her head. You gave us a bit of a scare. She giggled, and I leaned against the doorframe, watching her with my best friend, and smiled. Joey stepped back from Ollie and looked up at him. Who's running the... Oh my God. Ollie huffed, throwing his hands up in the air. You two are fucking incredible. Mama Mori is running the clan, Jade is helping, the baby is fine, I am here for the trial and to take you two back home. Joey blinked, looking at me, and I grimaced. Shit. Trial? What trial? I looked at Oliver, who tried to smile at me, but it came out in a grimace. Sorry. It's fine. I walked over to Joey and took her arm gently, taking her to the little kitchenette. I made her a coffee and sat it in front of her. Yamota and Jake are going to be having a trial in 2 days' time. Joey blinked at me. Jake's alive? I nodded. Yes, he's alive. It had been close, though. The knife had entered his stomach, ripping open the side of it, and his stomach acid had started to leak into his abdomen. He needed emergency surgery to fix it and save his life. Joey frowned and turned to Oliver. Is Yuka alive? Oliver nodded, joining us at the counter. Yes, thanks to you. He is alive. He needs his knee reconstructed, but he's going to wait until we're back in New York for that. Joey picked up her coffee cup, raised it to her mouth, then put it back down. What are they going to do with him? With Jake? I asked, and she nodded. Honestly, doll, I don't know, but Hirano isn't just going to let him go. Not after what he's done. Joey's bottom lip trembled, but he's sick. I wanted to rant and rave at her and tell her that she was being a sentimental idiot, but in reality she was right. He was sick. My little brother was not himself. Jacob would never have gone to the clans for money in the first place unless something else happened. I had done what any concerned brother had done and had dug deeper into his life. Mom thought he'd been with the gangs for 6 months. He'd been with them for close to 8 years. 8 whole fucking years. My little brother had been in with Yamota. The reason. Me. Yamota had seen the way I had risen in the ranks of Yuka's clan, no more than a year earlier, and he had sought out my little brother, thinking he had another version of me in the making. Yamota groomed him, giving him gifts and telling him how great he could be, that he could be just like his big brother. The problem was, Jake still hated me for smacking him in the nose 2 years earlier, and he held on to that resentment and used it like a shield. And when Jake turned 16 and was officially allowed to be inducted into the clan, he leaped at the opportunity to be better than me. The problem was, it was for the wrong Yakuza boss. If Jake had come to me and said, "Hey bro, I want in," I probably would have first told him to go and finish school, then I might think about it, and secondly, I would have warned him away from the life. It wasn't something any 16-year-old kid should mingle with, in the hopes he would listen. If he had come to me after both of those, then I would have taken him under my wing and taught him the honor of being clan. I hope Hirano goes easy on him, Oliver said, and I came back to the conversation. I hope so too, Joey said. I mean, nothing excuses him for what he did, but he's not well. Either way, I said, and both Oliver and Joey looked at me. We have to respect the decision. And your parents? Joey asked. What of them? I frowned. Yuka and I had this discussion only a few hours earlier. My parents wouldn't be safe in Miami anymore. Not with what Jake had done to the Yamota clan. Yuka offered to rehome them and my grandparents to New York, to give them a store in East Village they could run, which would be supported by the clan. I told him I would offer it to them, but I knew if it came to being offered something by the clan, my grandmother would probably pitch a fit. But I would offer. Yuka has invited them to move to New York. Oh, Oliver stood. Well, I need to go and see Yuka. Jade wants me to FaceTime him so he can see his grandson. Hiro has been pining for him. Ah, Joey said, smiling. And you, Ollie said. He keeps asking for Jojo. Joey grinned. Oh, my stars. I am going to have to squeeze the little pudding when I get back. Tell Jade we will see her in a couple of days. Will do. Oliver left and Joey turned back to me. What? You're not going. Not going where? She asked innocently, and I raised an eyebrow. To the trial. Like fuck I'm not. She huffed at me. Jolene. Don't you Jolene me in that tone of voice, Alexander. Joey, doll, love of my life. Sweet-talking me won't help either. She giggled and I rolled my eyes at her. I am going. Joey, Jake tried to kill you. I looked at the bruises around her throat. He literally tried to strangle you to death, and you want to go say hi? I don't want to go say hi, Alex. I want to go and look him in the eye while I stand by your side so he knows he didn't win. He didn't get what he wanted. Joey pushed the cup to the side and reached for my hand. I stepped forward and leaned my elbows on the bench and let her take them, playing with the clan ring that sat on my right ring finger. One day, when this is all over and we settle back into a routine, maybe I might find some strength to forgive him, But right now, I just want to show him I am happy with you and only you, and no matter what he offered, it was never going to make me choose him over you. I blinked and lifted my hand, cupping her chin. What did he offer? Joey looked up at me, her green eyes shining with unshed tears. Everything. Money, a house, marriage, babies. You want babies? Joey closed her eyes, pursing her lips, and nodded. I know you don't want them, but yeah, I leaned forward, kissing her, crushing her beautiful soft lips to mine before pulling away and resting my head against hers. If you want them, Joey, we can have babies. 89. Joey. Are you sure you're okay? I lifted my gaze and looked at Alex. He'd made me a cup of coffee, and I sat in bed while he sat at the foot of it, his hand on my foot. I'm okay. The nightmare which had ripped me out of sleep in a screaming, thrashing mess had claimed a victim, and I lowered my gaze from Alex at the sight of the bright handprint still across his cheek and the split to his lip. The dream was still vivid in my mind. Jake on top of me, choking the life out of me, and Alex not getting to me in time, playing over and over again. I don't know if it's a good idea for you to go to the meeting. I lifted my gaze to Alex again, seeing the worry on his features, and I knew what he was going to say. Oh, no, you don't. Joey? No, Alex? I put the cup on the bedside table and crawled across the bed to him, grabbing his face in my hands, and I had to stop myself from leaning in and kissing him. I am going. Joey? Say it with me. Joey, you are going to. Jolene? The meeting. Alex rolled his eyes and gripped my wrists, looking up at me. Doll. Don't doll me in that tone of voice. I huffed and he smirked. What tone? He asked, pulling me closer. Like you're going to try to convince me not to go by doing sex stuff. Alex stopped pulling me toward him and raised an eyebrow. Sex stuff? I giggled and he shook his head. I'm not going to do sex stuff, but I am going to ask you, as someone who is concerned about your mental health after all this, please, don't go. I pulled my wrists from his hands and moved back on the bed, frowning at him. Joey? I deserve the right to be able to see this out, Alex. He tipped back his head, and I seriously did want to do sex stuff with him. I missed his touch, his kisses, his body against mine, the sight of his throat. Plus, you told me I could. Are you a liar now? I knew that would push his buttons, and his head dropped back down, and he looked at me from under his eyebrows. A panty-melting stare that set my body on fire. Be careful, Jolene. Or what? You'll spank me? Please do. Alex closed his eyes, inhaling, and I knew he was trying not to laugh. I could see the tug of a smile at the corner of his mouth. He opened his eyes and looked at me. You're determined to go. Yes. Ugh, why? Why do you have to be like this? Like what? I asked innocently, and he raised his eyebrow again. I knew what he meant. Why was I so bratty to him? Why did I fight him? I did it because I liked to see his reaction. I liked the way he got possessive and protective and a little grumpy with me, because I knew it would come out in our lovemaking. He'd be a bit rougher, deny me an orgasm that little bit longer. Really, you have to ask yourself, why do you put up with it? He said, tipping his head to the side. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I could find a good Japanese girl who would do everything I ask of her. She'd cook and clean and make sure my clothes were laid out each morning. And lay there, motionless during sex, instead of screaming like a banshee. I added, giggling, and Alex chuckled. He held out his hand and I sighed, taking it, and he pulled me onto his lap. I mean, sounds wonderful. And boring as fuck, Alex murmured, kissing along my jaw, to my chin, then up to my mouth. And who would I be able to rant to? And who would kick up as quickly as me about things and annoy Ollie? Ooh, I like annoying Ollie. I giggled as Alex gripped my chin, kissing me. His other hand reached down, cupping my ass, squeezing it. I don't want a skeleton covered in cling film. He murmured against my mouth, his hand shifting to my thigh and up under the large shirt I was wearing. I like my woman with some meat on her bones. Then you're in luck. I murmured back as Alex tipped me back onto the bed, covering my body with his, thrusting his hips, rubbing his erection against my pussy. I have meat on my bones. Alex put his head against the side of my neck and started to laugh. What the fuck? Yeah, that was weird. I giggled. Alex lifted and propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me. The reason I put up with your shit is because I love you. Pure and simple. I looked up at him. Promise? That I love you? I nodded. Yes, Jolene Brewster, I love you. I always will. He leaned in, kissing me, and I sighed against him. He pulled away and kissed along my jaw again, whispering in my ear, "Do you think you can handle me making you scream?" I arched my back against him. "I thought you said you wouldn't do sex stuff." Alex groaned, burying his face against my neck, thrusting his hips forward, and my back arched again. I changed my mind. Alex tugged at my ear with his teeth as his hand moved, reaching down between us to release his cock, and I knew either way, he was going to make love to me and I wasn't going to stop him. After what we'd been through, this was going to be the thing we needed to show we were safe. "Okay, let me consult my doctor." I wrapped my arms around his neck, holding him to me, as he slowly moved his hips and pushed his cock into me. She said, "Go for your life. Just be gentle," and he was. Alex slowly, gently made love to me, stopping every now and then to make sure I was okay. We tipped over the edge, savoring the fact I was still here, that I was in Alex's arms, and by this time, tomorrow night, Jacob Kazumi would no longer be in our lives. 90. Alex. I didn't want Joey in the same city as Jake, let alone the same room. But there we were, sitting toward the back of the room, waiting for Jake and Yamota to be brought in for their trial. Hirano had converted one of his larger living rooms to a makeshift courtroom, and if it hadn't been such a serious moment, I would have laughed at how fucking ridiculous this actually was. There was no denying what had happened, or who was responsible. Just punish them and let us get on with our lives. We had plans. After I had slowly made love to her, Joey and I had laid away and talked about babies. Of all things, we spoke of our future children. We had decided on having at least 2. A boy and a girl would be nice, but we would be happy with any kids. She'd even gone as far as to ring Yasu and book an appointment with him to have her implant removed. It was happening. We were probably going to be expecting by the end of the year, and the idea didn't frighten me nearly as much as I thought it would. Especially when Mom called me this morning. I had told her a watered-down version of what had happened with Jake and Joey and how badly her baby had fucked up, and he probably wasn't coming home in a hurry. She had cried, and I had heard Pa in the background, swearing, but in the end they had accepted his fate and the offer from Yuka, which meant we would have generational help with our kids. I'd just have to make the rules when it came to Pa's Oka-san. I would not let her treat any of my children like she did me. The door behind us opened, and I felt Joey tense under my arm, which was casually draped around her shoulders. I turned my head, looking behind me, as I pulled her closer to me. Yamota came in first, waddled in with a Hirano soldier on either side of him. He walked to the front of the room and sat down at one of the seats, facing the room. Then came Jake, pushed in a wheelchair. He had survived the knife to his stomach, but he hadn't done so well against the fists of the Yakuza soldiers. His face was a myriad of bruising and cuts, and his left leg was in a cast, and I almost felt sorry for him. But it was fleeting, especially when through his swollen shut eye he glared at Joey and me. I put my hand against Joey's head, holding her against me, as she shook in my arms. She was terrified of him, and honestly, I didn't blame her. She still had bruises, too, like the ones that wrapped around her throat, which were the reason that even in this dry heat she was wearing a turtleneck sweater to hide them, and not to mention the nightmares. My lip still stung from where she had split it. Once Jake had been placed at the front of the room, Hirano stood and turned, addressing the room. There were Yakuza from most of them who had attended the meetings, as technically they'd been dragged into this. Today is not so much as a trial, as a punishment-setting venture. We all know what Yamota has done, and what Jacob Kazumi had done at Yamota's behest. Joey clung to the front of my shirt, but the shaking had stopped, and I kissed her forehead. That seemed to annoy Jake, and he glared at me again. If anyone would like to say anything before we bring down punishment, then may they say it now. Fuck that. I wasn't going to say shit to the little prike. Joey moved beside me, standing. I'd like to say something. Jolene, I said, grabbing her hand, and I tried to pull her back down onto the seat next to me. There was no way in hell she was strong enough to be speaking to Jake, not after what he had done to her. Joey, sit down. Of course, Miss Brewster, take your time, Hirano said, stepping out of the center of attention so that Jake was in full view. She shook her hand free of mine and stepped out into the aisle, pulling a piece of paper from her pocket. She'd written notes. For fuck's sake, I folded my arms over my chest as she unfolded the page and looked down at it. Jacob, I wish you hadn't gotten into this mess, been taken away from me, but you did. She lifted her head and looked at him, lowering the page, and my gaze went to my brother. There seemed to be no emotion on his features. I think I knew there was something wrong, and the hardest part, you didn't trust me enough to tell me you were in trouble. I watched my brother as the hard outer casing, which he had seemed to have put up, started to crumble. His swollen lips parted, and he licked them and swallowed, as if uncomfortable. So, you fucking should be. Fucker. You did this. You broke her. I wish you had told me you needed help. I would done anything to help. Fuck. I closed my eyes as they started to burn with tears. She wasn't in love with him anymore. That was clear from the way she called my name while I fucked her. But it didn't mean she didn't love him still. The love had just changed. I opened my eyes as I saw Jake's bottom lip tremble. I missed the little boy who liked to play chasey, who picked me up when I fell over and shared his lunch with me, who laughed at my silly jokes and held my hand when I cried. I looked at Joey, who had tears streaming down her face, and I had to resist the urge to get up and hold her. This was her moment. This was something she had to do. But most of all, I miss you. My gaze moved back to Jake, as a single tear slipped down his cheek and his swollen eyes closed. Fuck. Joey returned to the seat beside me, and the piece of paper fluttered to the ground as she turned and buried her head against my shoulder. I'm sorry. I had to. It's okay, doll, I muttered, putting my arm around her. It's okay. Hirano moved back to the center of the room and cleared his throat. Well, the room fell silent for a little, then he spoke again. The council has decided the fate of Yamota. He will be sent back to Tokyo and delivered into the hands of Akito Takada and the Takada clan. A small gasp rose around the room, and I closed my eyes, knowing what would befall Yamota. He would be given over to Akito, and Akito would have him carved into 1,000 tiny pieces and distributed across Japan. He would never be seen again. As for Jacob Kazumi, I opened my eyes and looked at my brother. There has been a call for leniency. Blinking, I stared at Hirano as he picked up a piece of paper and read from it. This is a statement from Yuka Takada. Mr. Taylor, as a representative of the Takada clan, can you please come up and read this statement? I turned and looked at Ollie as he stood his big ass up and stepped past Joey and me and walked up to the front of the room. He took the piece of paper from Hirano and cleared his throat. This is a statement from Mr. Yuka Takada. I, Yuka Takada, request that Jacob Kazumi be given leniency. He was brainwashed as a young child and fed on his brother's achievements, which fueled hatred and anger. In this environment, any child would have suffered, and it is only fair he is given the chance of rehabilitation. Joey lifted her head as Oliver spoke and stared at him in as much confusion as I was. I request that Jacob Kazumi be given over to the Takada clan in Tokyo, where he will be re-educated in the proper clan ways, under the tutelage of my brother Akito. There he will learn humility, honor, and compassion, and hopefully regain respect befitting the Kazumi name. Oliver handed the paper back to Hirano and returned to his seat beside me. I stared at him, and he frowned. Sorry, Yuka knew you wouldn't want anything done and left to the council, but he sees potential in Jake. Potential? For what? To backstab us again? I gritted my teeth and glared at my best friend. We're not done talking. He nodded, and I returned my gaze to Hirano. As you know, Yuka is very highly regarded in the council. His ways, while not traditional, show us there is a better future for the Yakuza, so the council has agreed. Jacob Kazumi will be taken to Japan and handed to Akito Takada for rehabilitation. This meeting is done. The room broke in an uproar, and I stood pulling Joey to her feet and guided her out of the room. We peeled away from the crowd, and I turned her down a hallway and pushed her against a wall. Are you okay? She stared up at me. He's going to Japan. He will be fine, Joey. Akito will make sure he becomes a changed man. Jake would want to become a changed man because I knew, if he didn't, Akito would no doubt kill him while trying to eliminate the shit Yamota had taught him. But right now we have to stop thinking of him and think of us. What are we doing now? She frowned and looked up at me. Aren't we going back to New York? Not straight away. Not if you don't want to. I pulled her into my arms and held her as she clung to me. We can go anywhere you want. Just the two of us. Then we can go back to New York. Joey pulled away from me. Vegas? I looked down at her. Vegas? She nodded, her eyes big and wide. Alex, take me to Vegas. 91. Joey. The lights, the smell, the dry heat. I leaned against the door of the car, my head out of the window a little, as Alex took us toward the hotel where we were staying. Never in a million years did I ever think I would be in Vegas. It had been a dream of Jake's, and now it was a reality for Alex and me. As we drove, every now and then there would be the sound of a church bell ringing out and I'd grin. Someone had gotten married. It's so pretty. If you say so. Alex replied, and I turned back to him, raising an eyebrow. Oh, come on, Alex. It's beautiful. I know of someone more beautiful than the whole of Vegas. He smirked, reaching out, taking my hand. But if you think it's pretty, then it is. I beamed with the compliment he'd given me. It had been alien at first, his comments on how beautiful he found me, but the more he said it, the more I believed him. How long are we staying? Yuka is flying out tomorrow with Oliver and Yasu. He told me this morning, we don't have to rush, so I was thinking, a week? I blinked. A week? We're going to be in Vegas for a week? Alex turned his head to me for a second before he turned his attention back to the road. Am I going to regret that? Is my bank account going to suffer? I reached over and slapped his bicep, and he chuckled. Asshole. I looked out the window again and marveled at the lights. It was bright and flashy, and I knew there was a seedy undertone to it all, but I was part of the Takata Yakuza clan. Seediness had to be something I got used to being exposed to. Alex pulled the car into the valet of the hotel we were staying at, and he climbed out and came around and opened my door. Helping me out of the car, he went to the trunk. He pulled out our cases and turned to the concierge, handing over the keys to the car, in exchange for a ticket. We walked into the hotel, checked in, and made our way up to our room. Oh my God! I walked to the window and stared at the view before turning to Alex. This would have cost a fortune. Wouldn't know, Alex said, leaning against the side of the sofa, watching me. Yuka paid for it. You're kidding me, right? I turned and looked at the view again. It was spectacular. We could see the streets below, lit up with their neon lights. We could see the ranges in the distance, lit up by the setting sun. It was magical. Joey. I turned and my eyes went wide. Alex, what are you doing? He'd stripped off his shirt and was standing in his black dress pants. He smirked and stepped toward me and my stomach flipped at the beauty of him. Remember our first night together? How can I forget? I mumbled. You were the first guy to show me I wasn't just the fat chick. Alex frowned. You're not fat or chunky or large. You are perfect. He stopped in front of me and tilted my chin up. And you're mine, now and always. I will always love you, no matter what, forever. I stared up into the dark abyss of his beautiful brown eyes, and I could feel tears filling mine. Be careful, Alexander Kazumi. Those words sound almost like marriage vows. Alex smirked, leaning in, kissing me softly, so his lips barely touched mine. Do you want them to be? I pulled back and stared up at him, my heart racing. Alex, don't tease. I'm not teasing, doll. He leaned in, kissing me again, softly, achingly slow. I am asking you, do you want to get married? I took a step back and stared at him, trying to figure out if he was kidding or not. Was this a joke? Was this... Alexander? Yes or no, Jolene? You're not kidding. I watched as he dug into his pocket and pulled out a teal box and sank to one knee. Oh my God. Jolene Brewster, I love you. More than anyone in this whole fucked up world. You have stuck by my side when you had every right to run. You've accepted who I am and have loved me for it, even when it almost cost you your life. Alex's voice was becoming rough, and my hands lifted to my mouth as he continued. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, have babies with you, grow old with you. Tears were running down my cheeks, and I knew if I tried to say anything to him, I would start sobbing uncontrollably. Will you marry me? I didn't say a thing. Instead, I threw myself against him, wrapping my arms around his neck and knocked him backward. The ring box went flying across the carpet as Alex's arms wrapped around me, and we kissed on the floor of the hotel room. He rolled us over so he was on top, and Alex buried his head against my neck. I take that as a yes? I pushed him up a little so I could look into his eyes. 1,000,000 times, yes, over and over again until I can't say it anymore. Yes, Alexander Kazumi, I will marry you. Alex kissed me again, thrusting his hips against mine. Bedroom, or here? I arched my back as he kissed along my neck, down toward the top of my breasts. He moved down my body, opening the buttons of my sundress as he went, kissing my exposed skin until he was at my hips. With quick movements, he had removed my panties and buried his face against my pussy, licking and suckling at my clit. My back arched further as Alex took me over the edge, and I cried out, threading my hands through his hair as I orgasmed. Alex! He slowly moved back up my body, kissing as he went, and he whispered in my ear, I am going to spend the rest of our lives making you orgasm just to hear you scream my name. I sighed, wrapping my arms around his neck as he thrust his hips against my sensitive pussy, looking forward to it. Alex chuckled and lifted himself from me. He stood over me, staring down at the way I lay, with my dress and legs open. As much as I would love to just go hell for leather with you on the floor, he reached down and helped me to my feet. I think the sofa will be more comfortable for you. Alex guided us to the sofa and he sat on it, undoing his pants. He pushed them down, exposing his erection, and sat down. Come here, doll. I straddled him, sinking down onto his cock, and tipped my head back and started to rock my hips. Fuck, he moaned, his hands gripping my hips, and I started to move faster. That's it, doll. Come on, give me another one. It didn't take long, my orgasm building quickly, and I gripped his shoulders, lifting myself a little, and Alex took over. He lifted his hips, ramming up into me, and I moaned as I orgasmed again. Oh, Alex. Fuck. Alex grunted, grabbing my hips and holding me down onto his, and I felt his pulse releasing into me. Joey, I collapsed against him, wrapping my arms around his neck as his breath came in short, hard gasps. Holy shit, just like the first night, I said, kissing him. Better than the first night, because I know I can do it every night. Oh, now you might be pushing your luck. I giggled and he chuckled. So I looked at Alex. So what? When? When what? When do you want to get married? I turned my head and looked for the little teal box. It lay on the floor, discarded, and I climbed from his lap and did up my dress as I walked over to it. Scooping it up, I took it back to Alex and sat next to him. He'd tucked himself back into his pants, and as I sat, he put his arm around my shoulders. Opening the box, I stared at the ring. It was huge. Alex? I looked up at him. It's too... Nope, don't say it. It's perfect and shows you how much I love you. Alex plucked the ring out of the box and picked up my hand, sliding it onto my finger. And it shows everyone else how much I love you. I stared at the 4-carat cushion-cut diamond ring and smiled. Was it flashy? Yes. Was it a little over the top? Also yes. Was it perfect? Damned fucking right it was. You never answered my question either, he said, nipping at my ear, and I giggled. Tomorrow. He pulled away and looked at me. Tomorrow? I nodded, smiling up at him. We're in Vegas, Alex. Let's get married tomorrow? Alex chuckled and lifted himself, going to the counter near the door, before returning with his phone. He winked at me as he pressed a couple of buttons, and I squinted at him. What the? Ollie, she said yes. It's on for tomorrow. I'll text you in the morning. He hung up and tossed the phone to the side and looked at me. I stared at him. What? How long have you been planning this? Alex chuckled, putting his arm around me again. Marrying you? About 3 weeks after you moved to New York. I bought the ring. Just before you went back to Miami, I was going to ask that night, at dinner. I looked at the ring, then to him and slapped his chest. You asshole. Alex blinked. What, if you had told me I would have stayed? Alex closed his eyes and tipped back his head. I'm sorry. Sighing, I leaned against him and turned, curling up against him, and I could feel the pull of sleep. It had been so stressful the last couple of days. It's okay. I love you anyway. Alex wrapped his arm around me and murmured as he started to nod off as well. I love you too, Jolene. 92, Alex. Fuck. I couldn't believe I was doing this. Getting married. I paced the hotel room waiting for Ollie. He'd promised he'd be there for me as my witness and best man. I just hoped the big idiot hadn't flaked. There was a knock at the door, and I crossed to it, opening it. I looked at the man who stood on the other side. Can I help you? He smiled, and I tilted my head to the side. He had the same little lopsided grin as his daughter, Mr. Brewster. Alexander Kazumi. He stepped forward, wrapping his arms around me and hugged me, as Oliver chuckled and stepped into the room behind him. Surprise! Ollie chuckled, closing the door. Joey's father let go of me, clapping me on the shoulders. She was right, you are a good-looking young man. Sir, I would have asked... I stammered, but he cut me off. Nonsense, I am not that old-fashioned. I know Joey loves you, and you have made her extremely happy. So you can marry my daughter, and you can call me Ion. I chuckled. Eowyn. Irish. Now I can see where she gets her feistiness from. Eowyn Brewster laughed. That was her mother, red-headed and wild, like a pagan. Goddess, we both said in unison and started to laugh. Oh yes, Jolene has always had fire in her soul and Irish whiskey in her veins. You're going to have your hands full with that one, and I wish you all the luck in the world. Eowyn chuckled. Oh, don't I know it? I chuckled in return. I turned to Oliver. How is Yuka? There was another knock at the door, and I squinted at Ollie as he walked to the door and opened it. Ioto stood on the other side, Yuka in a wheelchair in front of him, Sota by his side. Sota! I practically ran across the room. Sota stepped into the room and stopped in front of him. I wanted to throw myself at him, but I knew he would still be sore from the surgery to remove the bullet from his breastbone. Come here, you little shit. Sota grabbed me, hugging me to him, and mumbled in my ear. Thank you for saving my life, Alex. We're even. I chuckled, letting him go, and stepped back, bowing to him, then turned to Yuka. Sir, you are supposed to be home. And miss you and Jolene getting married? Not on your life. I'm not going to die, Alexander. Let me enjoy this. He chuckled, and I smiled, bowing. Turning, I flipped Oliver off, who laughed and turned back to Eowyn. Eowyn, this is Yuka Takata. He is mine and Joey's boss. Eowyn came over and bowed to Yuka, then shook his hand. It's an honor, sir. No, the honor is mine, Mr. Brewster. If it wasn't for your daughter, I would not be here. She saved my life. Eowyn smiled. Sound just like my Rue. I scrunched my eyebrows together. Rue? He laughed and told us the story of the young Joey and the kangaroo at the zoo, and we all laughed. I'm going to have to mention it. Oh, please don't. Eowyn laughed. She will skin me alive. What time have you booked this in for, Alex? Oliver asked, coming over to me and putting his arm around my shoulders. I want to text Jade and let her know to have Joey there on time. Jade's here too? Yeah, like she would miss it. Ollie mumbled. Damned woman threatened me with divorce if I didn't get her a flight over to it. I laughed. Well, couldn't have that then, could we? I have the chapel booked for a 6 p.m. start. Oliver looked at his watch. Well, better get ready. I nodded and went to shower, quickly dressing in the suit I'd bought that morning, and walked out into the hotel room. Oh, very dashing, Yuka said, as Oliver took a photo. And I flipped him off again. Have you got the ring? Sure do. Ollie replied, pulling out the box and handing it to me. Alex, if I may ask a favor? Eowyn stepped up to me and held out his hand. In it sat a ring box, and I looked at him. It was Joey's mother's wedding ring. In the end, they didn't fit her fingers anymore. Joey already has the engagement ring, reforged into a pendant. If you don't mind. I smiled as he trailed off, and I took the box from his hand and opened it. Inside sat one of the most exquisite wedding bands I had ever seen. Filigree gold and silver entwined in Celtic knots. It'd be an honor, Eowyn. Thank you. Well, I best go and see my girl before everything. He smiled and hugged me again. I will see you in a little while. Eowyn left, and I inhaled. Phew. Having second thoughts? Sota asked, and I shook my head. No, just never thought I would ever get to this point, with anyone. Ever. Well, neither did we, Yuka said. But here you are. After a few more minutes of talking, we made our way down to the chapel in the hotel and waited. I bounced nervously on the balls of my feet, eager to see the woman I was about to. The moment the door opened and Joey stepped through, on the arm of her father, it was as if I had forgotten how to breathe. She was ethereal. The white dress she wore, while not traditionally a wedding dress style, looked incredible on her, and my heart thudded painfully in my chest at the sheer beauty of her and the fact she was about to become my wife. Tears burned in my eyes, and I bit my lip, trying to stop myself from crying. Eowyn handed Joey's hand to me, and she stepped up beside me. Joey looked up and frowned. Are you crying? Don't cry. You'll make me cry, and I've already cried enough today. I'm not, but you look incredible, doll. Thank you, she whispered, and we turned to the celebrant. He ran through the traditional sayings of a wedding, of how it was sacred and blah, blah, blah. I didn't really hear much of it. I was too busy staring at Joey. I didn't deserve her. This perfectly wild and beautiful woman who had gone through so much and was still standing here with me getting married. Do you, Alexander Kazumi, take this woman, Jolene Teresa Brewster, as your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold until death do you part? I looked down at Joey and smiled. I do, always. She slid the simple gold band onto my finger and held my hand tight. And do you, Jolene Teresa Brewster, take this man, Alexander Kazumi, to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold until death do you part? Joey looked up at me and smiled. I do, always. I took the ring from Oliver and slid it onto her finger, and she looked down at it. Oh my God. Papa. She turned to her dad, who was fighting back tears, and he blew her a kiss. Joey smiled at him before turning back to me, biting her lip to stop herself from crying. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of Nevada, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss the bride. There was nothing I wanted more, and I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around Joey, and kissed her as if I would die if I didn't. A cheer went up through the cathedral, but I didn't really take much notice of it. We were complete, final, married. There was no other woman on earth who would ever take Joey's place in a million years, and I knew, as she wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me, she would always be by my side no matter what. Pulling away, I looked down at her. Joey looked up at me, tears sitting on her lashes. Ready for our next chapter, Mr. Kazumi? I chuckled and leaned in, hugging her to me. Always, Mrs. Kazumi, Joey giggled. I like the sound of that. Good. And do you like the sound of 2 weeks in Hawaii? Joey pulled away from me and looked up. No, you didn't. I put my hand out, and Oliver quickly came up, handing me the tickets, and I gave them to her. 2 weeks. Just you and me, doll. Oh, Alex, she flung herself at me this time, kissing me again, and I heard Oliver yell out. Get a room, you two. I lifted my hand, flipping him off, as I continued to kiss my wife, and as the most important people in our life laughed, I held on to Joey, knowing we were going to be just fine. Mr. and Mrs. Kazumi were now a reality. And thank you. To everyone who has read this story, thank you. I never in a million years thought this would do as well as it has. You have given me faith back in my writing. This is the biggest story I have ever written, and it flowed so well. I was so incredibly happy with it. I have been asked if I can do a sequel to this, and am trying to find a storyline that won't seem like I am trying too hard with it. Hopefully I can, and hopefully I will be able to bring you back Alex, Joey, Soda, Oliver, Aodo, and Jade in a future book. But for now, I'm done with Joey and Alex's story. I'm going to let them go to Hawaii and have their happily ever after. Once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, 3. Thank you for listening. The story